Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. As I mentioned when we were taking attendance today, we're going to be doing stuff asynchronously. Above my head, you can see the primary objective for the day, but here we will take a look at them in a little bit more detail. First, I can begin gathering and analyzing evidence to use in planning and writing my essay. Second, I can compare and contrast events in a long walk to water with an informational text that describes the same events. Those are the main things we're going to be working on today. As you know, you're working on gathering research for an essay that's going to answer this question: how has the author of A Long Walk to Water used or altered history in the novel, right? And that's going to tie back into the work we were doing yesterday when we were looking at those photos. But before we get into that, I want you to pause for a second and actually read chapter 15 if you haven't already. That's going to be super important. So actually stop, pause the video, and go read chapter 15. I don't know why I did the transition. I'm not actually going to cut. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you finished reading chapter 15 because it's great. If you didn't, go do it. I'm not kidding. Go. So our goal for today with our research is to figure out what types of things could go in our two proof paragraphs, here and here, in our painted essay from Tuesday, right? We need to figure out what the best things might be to try and prove our thesis statement, to try and prove what we're going to discuss later on, right? Like the ways in which Miss Parks did or did not change the historical fact to suit her narrative, right? So if you think back to the work we did yesterday with those videos, or those photos rather, we know that she wasn't always 100% accurate and honest in explaining to us what was going on, because she describes the Sudan as being this kind of janky place, and it's really not, right? So we need to try and figure out together for ourselves what other areas about Salva's story she may have fictionalized and what parts may be more accurate. So in Canvas, there is an organizer called Similarities and Differences Research Organizer. You can get to it by clicking on the big blue button. I want you to use that organizer to keep track of what she changed and what she kept the same, like historical detail wise, right? There are spaces for 5 different categories for you to take a look at. We're going to do the first one together, and my expectation is going to be that you get at least 2 more done, depending on what class you're in. So let's go take a look at that, shall we? I just need to change my thing like that. There we go. So again, you can find this in Canvas, or you can just go right into Google Drive, I suppose, and search for this title up here, Similarities and Differences Research Organizer. This is what it will look like when you sign in. The first thing I want you to do is to copy and paste or just type the research question that you're supposed to answer in this box right here. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, it actually has them already pre-written so that it's not confusing. So go ahead and copy that in there if you haven't already. Then you'll see there are 5 of these slides that are all the same. They just have a different topic number on them, right? And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. For each one of these, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what you know from one of our other sources, right? Whether that is one of the articles we read, one of the videos we watched, anything, right? And I want you to compare what Linda Sue Park says happened with what we know from the research. And I'm going to give us a head start here. For this first topic, we're going to focus on the Kakuma refugee camp. So I'm going to type that in there. There are lots of other things you might consider putting in for your other 4 categories. For example, you might talk about like the Lost Boys coming to the U.S., you know, what the book says happened versus what our documentaries and research say happened. The role of women in Salva's society, like how respected are they, that type of thing. You might also talk about like the role of the lost girls and how like they don't really show up at all in the novel, but they're like a big deal in other parts of our research. Those are all great topics that you might consider researching here. But I'm going to focus on this one for our example. So, I'm not looking for tons and tons of detail here, right? I am focusing on just getting the main ideas. So I'm going to say Salva is there for 2 years and feels it is almost like a prison. Now I happen to have a paper copy of the book in front of me, so I know that's on page 84. If you're just using a digital copy, you can type in the chapter number instead of the page number instead. But notice please that the thing that was important to me is this quotation mark, is this quotation here. Salva says it feels almost like a prison. So I'm going to put that in quotes because that's something that is actually straight out of the book, right? This part up here, Salva is there for 2 years. Like, they never actually say the words Salva is there for 2 years. The author describes it to me differently, so it's not in quotation marks. But I have some pieces of information, and I have a page number or a chapter number when that's appropriate. Next, I'm going to take a look at one of my pieces of research. You may want to go back and look at our previous organizers or your notes that you were taking, your annotations from all that hard work you were doing earlier in the course. All of that's coming back to help you out now. So if you haven't done it, you may want to go back and do some of that, just saying. But I'm interested in the Lost Girls of the Sudan article. That's what I'm going to focus on. The article also describes it as a prison. And then there's a quote I'm going to use. Dr. Pauline Briac of the Sudanese Women's I can't spell today, sorry guys. Association describes Kakuma as a prison where young why is there a comma there? Oh, there's a comma there. Women are especially vulnerable. Right? So those are just exact words from the story. I copied it exactly the way that it's written. And then I'm going to put what source that's from. It's from the Lost Girls of the Sudan article. Notice that my words there go below the little box. If it bothers you, you can always just drag it down like that so you have more space. That's okay. So on the left-hand side, I say, hey, what does A Long Walk to Water have to say? And on the right-hand side, what does the research have to say? And then in the bottom box, I'm going to say, how does these pieces of data, how does that help me answer this question, right? The one I typed in up here. So, well, if I think about this, they're pretty much the same, right? In this case, Salva and Salva's story from Miss Parks matches up real nicely with our research. So that's what I'm going to write. And Sue Park stays true to the fact that children were, I can't type today, guys, placed in a prison-like camp. She spends very little time describing it and mostly ignores women and girls to focus on Salva. Right? So hopefully we can understand that this is how these two pieces of information, when we put them in relationship with each other, help us answer our research question, right? Both of them talk about it being like a prison, but the articles talk about how it's especially bad for women and girls. but Salva's story kind of ignores that fact, which I guess makes sense. Salva wasn't hanging out with the girls, right? He was with the boys. But still, that is an example of the author using and altering history, right? Sometimes things are the same, sometimes things are different. You should go ahead for the rest of the block and respond to the rest of these things. If you're in my first block, I'd like you to answer 2 more. If you're in my fourth block, I'd like you to do 3 more. Okay? Again, some things you might consider talking about there are, what it was like for the Lost Boys to come to the U.S. You might talk about women being forced into different roles in Sudanese society. You might talk about how the Lost Girls continue to suffer. All those things are things you might discuss in your work today. If you have any questions, I'd recommend first rewatching this video, and second, if you can't figure something out, coming and seeing me in the Zoom call. I hope you have a great day. Be well, and do good.